Good morning. Thank you, Mr. DJ. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I want to say a big thank you for making out bright and early. When we put 9 a.m., sometimes people misinterpret that to mean 11 a.m. Some unwritten African law, but we don't practice that. We practice being punctual. So I want to just say thank you, because you could have been taking your time, you could have been in your office, but you decided to honor our invitation, and it just shows your commitment to working with the authority in ensuring that we're all compliant. Just by a show of hands, how many of us attended 1.0? We were here last year for the inaugural edition. Anyone? The General Counsel and Legal Advisors Forum. Okay, I see one hand there. Okay, another hand. So there's a lady, there's a gentleman. Anyone on this row? Okay, another lady. Great. Anyone? Yes. So we have newcomers. Don't worry, I won't ask you to stand up and we'll usher you to a special reception. But thank you for joining us at 2.0. So for those who joined us at 1.0, no pressure, but we'd really like to hear your views, what it was like for you, and your expectations for today. So if you don't mind, I'll get the microphone across to you, and you could just say your name, what you do, and your experience from last year, and also your expectations from today. So I believe we have people here, here, and here. As I said, no pressure. But this is a forum that's meant to be interactive, engaging, and you never know where these connections will take you to. So, anyone, the people who attended last year, and if it's your first time and you want to share your expectation, you're also free to just, yes. I love how the gentleman is pointing to the lady is pointing to the gentleman. It's like, ladies first, I don't want to be the first person, but please give her a round of applause. I know it's not easy to be put on the spot. Please, that applause is very weak. I wouldn't even accept it as the MC, not alone your colleague. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Oluchi Patience Ngo, legal officer at Nigerian Nuclear Regulatory Authority. Just to say, this is my boss, so as director, so I have to take the mic.
Yeah, boss. Leadership is by example, though. We'll come back to you, sir.
I think we actually talked about the PIA. I think that was what I took out. And I know so many, I think a lot of talked about the PIA. So I look forward to see if the effects and the defects, the gaps that were discussed the last time about the PIA, if it's actually been affected, because I know a lot of operators actually had a lot of lapses and gaps that they thought was affecting them, and then the PIA was not so much promoting the operators. So I'd like to see if the 2.0 has actually covered that gap. And I know it was like a one day we had the last time, so I don't know if the events that were going to carry over from what was supposed to be discussed the second day because of the passing of the president, so rest in peace. So I think that's basically what I look forward. And it was a very good experience, I would say, the last one, even though it was just a one day, but it was amazing. And I look forward to a great one, this 2.0. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please give her a round of applause. And sir, I hope you were impressed and happy with that. You never know, maybe a raise is coming. That's your bargaining chip. So please help me take the microphone to that side. I believe there are other people who would like to share a thing or two. And to respond to you, thank you for highlighting. Last year, it was meant to be a 2-day event, but due to circumstances beyond our control, the passing of the late president, we had to cut it short as the nation went into mourning. But guess what? We're having 3 events. We have day 1, we have the cocktail, and then we have day 2. So I think that will provide ample time to have any concerns you have about the PIA addressed and any legal ambiguity, any areas that you just need clarity, and you also want that engagement, that face time with the authority, this is the opportunity. So please come with your questions, and I'd like to know maybe after day 2 if some of those concerns have been addressed. All right, do we have anyone, someone who attended last year or someone who's attending for the first time and would just like to share their expectations? A round of applause for the gentleman. Thank you very much. The scores are even now. So.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Umar. I work for the FCCPC, Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission. And so the last time I was here representing the Commission, of course the issues relating to the PIA were discussed. I remember then I was looking out for issues relating to competition and consumer protection in these areas. I think I even jotted down some questions I would have loved to ask, I think on the second day, but I was a little bit disappointed that the second day didn't hold. So I look forward to paying my attention to the discussions that will be taken on these 2 days and see how issues relating to competition and consumer protection will be addressed, especially as it relates to what will be talked about today. So that's what I look forward to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for him. Yes, I know we all were looking forward to 2 days of high-level engagement, interactivity, questions being answered, but as I said earlier, we all went into mourning as a nation, but we're making up for it. And again, this is a safe space, so there are no questions that are not allowed, so far as they are posed in a respectful and cordial manner. But it's really about the authority hearing the issues, the challenges, the areas that the operators need help with, especially when it comes to interpreting the PIA. So it's all about the responsibility of the operators. It's a shared responsibility. When we all take compliance as our responsibility, we continue to drive investor confidence in the sector as a whole, and we also ensure that the sector is transparent, it's accountable, and very investor friendly. And I think that's what we all want, whether you're on the side of the regulator or on the side of the authority. We all want the investment to continue. We all want to ensure that everyone is compliant. So, anybody else? Preferably, I'd like someone who is attending for the first time, your motivation, and why you decided to honor this invitation, what your expectations are. So the microphone is still on the floor in case we have anyone that would like to say a thing or two. What you're expecting, I know that it's always an opportunity to learn. When we have specialists, we have experienced executives here doing presentations and also having healthy conversation when we have our panel sessions. You can learn so much more, even more than ChatGPT, because not everything that AI tells you that is actually real. Sometimes you have to hear directly from the people who are doing this on a day-to-day basis. So the panel sessions, the presentations, the keynote address, to just understand the progress that has been made since the General Counsel and Legal Advisors Forum 1.0. So anyone here? Let's see. I know we've had someone from this side. So we started from this side and we moved to that side. So maybe there hasn't been anyone from this side of the room. So let's balance it. We've had a lady, we've had a gentleman, and we'd like to have someone. Anyone? Okay. Well, if we don't have anyone who would like to share, I want to say thank you once again. I see more people who have come in, and just thank you, really. Thank you, because you could be anywhere as the MC from the first edition. that it's highly interactive. So if you've not attended before, this is not the place where you take your questions back home. You come with your questions, you will get answers. Sometimes on the spot and sometimes after the event, but you will get answers and you will build a stronger relationship with the authority, in this case, with the regulator. So please, come with your full self. I know there are lots of things demanding our attention, emails, WhatsApp messages, deadlines, but I promise you, if you give us your full and undivided attention today, you'll get so much out of this event, and you will leave with a clearer vision, clearer interpretation of the PIA as it pertains to your organization. So again, this is our event, so all the legal officers, the general counsels, membership of the legal teams across the different operators, this is for you. It's hearing your challenges, providing solutions, and working together as one to ensure that we go beyond the buzzword of compliance, but we're actually driving continued investment into this sector, making it accountable, transparent, and just ensuring that we're able to fully harness the dividends of the PIA. So we'll be starting shortly. We'll just like for more people to arrive, and if you need to respond to a message, now is the time. If you want to have your pictures taken, now is the time. And if you do want to visit the restroom, respond to the call of nature, the ushers are more than happy to direct you, but would like you to give your full and undivided attention once we begin. So I'll just let the DJ play a bit of music, and as I said, we will be starting shortly as we truly appreciate you coming on time, and we won't want this to drag as we have 2 days, 3 events. So please take my promise that we will try as much as possible to keep to time. And for those who will be speaking on stage, just to assist you so that we're all playing the role of the accurate timekeeper, we do have a timer that you can see, so you know how many minutes you have for your speech, your presentation, your deliberation, your Q&A, so that we're all guided and we're able to leave here on time to return in the evening for the cocktail and tomorrow for day 2. So over to you, Mr. DJ. Let's have some music. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we welcome you to the second edition of the General Counsel and Legal Advisors Forum. Please, we will be starting shortly, so if you're still outside, now is a great time to come into the room and get your seat. Really important, we're very mindful of your time, so please, can we all come into the room? Ushers, can you direct people into the room? And please do take a seat. The microphone is still on the floor in case we have anyone who would like to share a thing or two, maybe lessons from the first edition or expectations from the second edition. We're happy to hear from all the councils, the general counsels, the legal officers, members of the legal leadership teams across the different operators. So please, if you'd like to share a thing or two, the microphone is on the floor. Usher, please, can we just look around? If you just signify your interest, a microphone will be given to you. And yes, we do have the ACE. He'll be joining us very shortly, the Authority Chief Executive. He's already here and he will be joining us very shortly. So the event will soon start. We're also expecting His Excellency, the Honourable Minister, who's also very close. So please, let's just be mindful of the time, appealing to all our panelists, our presenters, our moderators to just keep an eye on the timer to my right to ensure that we make the most of the time we have today. So if there's anyone who would like to share their expectation or just would like to introduce themselves, because this is meant to be very interactive, please do signify by raising your hand and the microphone will get to you. So I know we heard from this side and this side. Do we have anyone from this side? I'm a bit particular because it seems the balance is tilting here. So do we have a gentleman or a lady who would like to say something if you attended last year or this is your first time? All right, if we don't have anyone on this side, do we have anyone to my right? Anyone? It doesn't have to be long if it doesn't require it to be, but we just want to know what your expectations are. This is a high-level engagement forum between the regulator and the operator to ensure that the ambiguities that have arisen as a result of the PIA, they are addressed, and we can all take compliance as a shared responsibility and not just one person has to carry it all. And that's what we're building on today, ensuring that we go beyond compliance, which has become a buzzword in this sector, but we're looking at driving investor confidence. And that can only come when there's certainty with the regulators, when people know if we put our money in this sector, it's not going to vacillate. We won't have flip-flops when it comes to regulatory. So anything you're not clear on, this is the forum to get answers. If you can get answers today, trust me, you will. And if time does not permit, you'll get your answers tomorrow or the next week, but you will have access to the authority. You have access to the regulator. So please, let's ensure that we come here ready to engage, to interact. And I know there's still a few phone calls going on. This is a great time to round off those conversations so you make the most of our time here today. So anyone who would like to share an experience or two, any gentleman, any lady would like to say something, a message, trust me, they're listening. Okay, I don't know if it's because we haven't yet had tea, but if you do want water, at the back of the hall to my left, we have bottles of water. We do have a tea break, and we're going to close the event with lunch because we know how it can be when it comes to lunch at these conferences. People go for lunch and then it's so hard to bring everyone back into the room. So we'll close today's event with lunch and tomorrow's event with lunch. So again, I'm appealing to everyone to just be very mindful of the time so that we don't have to stretch lunch till 4 p.m. or heaven forbid 5 p.m. because we still have the cocktail this evening and we have day 2. Last year, it was meant to be a 2-day event, but due to the passing of the late president, the nation went into mourning and we had to cut it short. So apologies to our presenters, our panelists, our moderators who made the trip down here to Abuja and didn't have the chance to present, to engage. It was beyond our circumstance, and we hope that this year's edition, barring any form of deaths which we come against, we will have 2 solid days of engagement, of knowledge sharing, of interactivity, all with the aim of ensuring that we go beyond compliance to truly restore investor confidence, build on it, and attract even more investment into this sector. And that can only come when there's certainty with the regulatory bodies. And that's why the NMDPRA has organized a forum like this. So any part you're not certain about, today or tomorrow or next week, you get your answers. So thank you once again for coming in bright and early. If you're still outside and you can hear my voice, this is your cue to come into the hall so that you don't miss anything. Please, ushers, can we just pop outside to make sure that nobody is still outside? We will be starting very shortly. Great time to round off those conversations, finish typing those emails, and then we can start in earnest. DJ, please, let's have some music. Please, can we all be seated? It's a pleasure, it's an honor to be joined this morning at this very auspicious occasion by the Honourable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Oil, and he'll be speaking on the forum theme, His Excellency Senator Heineken Lokpobiri, PhD. Please, can we acknowledge the arrival of the Honourable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Oil, His Excellency Senator Heineken Lokpobiri, PhD, with a warm, resounding round of applause. Thank you. I think that applause was a bit too weak. I know we can do better than that. Thank you very much. Please, can we stand? We will be officially starting this event with the national anthem. So please, can we all be on our feet?
Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native land. Though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigerians all and proud to serve our sovereign motherland. A symbol that truth and justice reign, in peace or battle honored, and this we count as gain. To hang on to our children a banner without stain. O God of all creation, grant this our wandering first. Help us to build a nation where no man is oppressed. And so with peace and plenty, Nigeria may be blessed.
God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You may be seated. His Excellency Senator Heineken Lokpobiri, PhD, the Honourable Minister of State, Petroleum Resources, Oil. Mallam Rabiu Abdullahi Umar, Authority Chief Executive, NMDPRA. Mr. Abiodun Adeniji, Executive Director, Finance and Accounts, NMDPRA. Mr. O.K. Okwoha, Executive Director, Distribution System Storage and Retailing Coordinator, Midstream and Downstream Alternative Disputes Resolution Center, NMDPRA. Boma Alabi, OON San, Senior Partner, Primera Africa Legal. Distinguished General Counsels, legal advisors, legal officers, all our invited speakers, our panelists, our moderators, members of the media, good morning and welcome to the second edition of the General Counsel and Legal Advisors Forum brought to you by the NMDPRA. Last year, we convened with the buzzword of compliance being a shared responsibility, one not just limited to the regulator or to the operator, but one that is carried out as a responsibility of all. This year, we're back for a 2-day engagement, high-level deliberations, an opportunity to have clarifications, questions answered, for us to forge ahead and go beyond compliance. Because to ensure that this sector remains investment friendly and there's continued investment, there has to be certainty on the part of the regulator, and the confidence of the investors will continue to grow. So we're back here for 2 days, starting with our conference, our cocktail in the evening, and then tomorrow we reconvene. It will go beyond presentations, panel discussions. It will be an opportunity to rub minds, to exchange knowledge, to get clarifications on issues around ambiguity on the PIA, and to also hear from you as an operator. This is a safe space. We welcome all your contributions, and no questions are barred. We want to hear from you, because for us to go beyond compliance, it's important we're all on the same page. It's truly my honor to stand before you this morning as your Master of Ceremonies. My name is Isabella Adediji, and once again, I welcome you to the second edition of the General Counsel and Legal Advisors Forum. Please give yourselves a round of applause for honoring our invitation and showing your commitment to going beyond compliance to ensure that our industry remains vibrant, investor-friendly, transparent, and accountable. We'll start with a safety briefing, and then we'll hear from the ACE as he welcomes us, and we'll move very quickly to our keynote address before we have our first presentation. For everyone who will be coming on the stage, please, we're very mindful of our time. We have a timer to my right that will guide you to ensure that we're able to stick to time and we can finish right on time. So at this point, I'd like to invite the representative for Abuja Continental Hotel to give us a safety brief. As he makes his way to the stage, this is also a good time to go over some housekeeping. If you do have your phone with you, can you just ensure that it's on quiet, vibrate, or silent mode? The last thing we'll want is for any ringtone in time. So please, let's ensure our devices, phones, tablets, and laptops are all on vibrate or silent mode. Should you need to respond to the call of nature, the ushers are more than happy to direct you. And of course, in the case of a fire emergency, we'll all be directed outside to convene, but we pray we'll have none of such today. Would also like you to, from today, so when you do have the opportunity, do have your pictures taken, and also if you're sharing, please tag us across the different social media platforms. Please, can we have the representative from Abuja Continental Hotel for the safety briefing? A warm round of applause for him as he makes his way to the stage. Okay. We'll go over the safety briefing when he arrives. I'm not sure what's happening, but we'll move very quickly. But as I said, if there's any issues, should the alarm go off, we'll all be expected to exit the hall. We only have one entrance, and to make our way outside till we await further instructions. It gives me great joy. It's truly an honor and pleasure to invite a distinguished, seasoned executive who comes with over 25 years of experience cutting across energy, manufacturing, oil and gas, a man who has proven his worth over and over again, who has served in various capacities. Truly an honor to be inviting our ACE, the authority Chief Executive, NMDPRA. Can you give a resounding round of applause for Mallam, Rabiu, Abdullahi, Umar, as he comes to the stage to give his opening remarks. I think that applause was for me, so I will not accept it on behalf of the ACE. Once again, the ACE, NMDPRA.
Thank you. Thank you. The Honourable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Senator Heineken Lokpobiri, PhD. Distinguished General Counsel and legal advisors, captains of industry, representatives of government and regulatory institutions, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great honor and privilege to welcome you to the 2026 edition of the NMDPRA General Counsel and Legal Advisors Forum. I'm particularly delighted to be joining you at this forum for the first time as the Authority Chief Executive of NMDPRA. Permit me at the outset to express my appreciation to all participants who have taken the time to be here over the next 2 days. Your presence reflects the importance that the industry places on regulatory engagement, legal certainty, and collaborative problem solving. Indeed, that commitment to engagement is the very reason this forum exists. When the authority established the General Counsel and Legal Advisors Forum, it did so in recognition of a simple reality. Effective regulation cannot be achieved through regulation alone. The most carefully crafted law, the most comprehensive regulation, and the most robust compliance framework ultimately depends on people for their implementation. It's as relevant today as it was when this forum was first conceived. This year's theme, Beyond Compliance, Driving Regulatory Certainty and Investment Confidence in Nigeria's petroleum sector, reflects the maturity of the conversation we are now having as an industry. Last year's forum successfully established compliance as a shared value between the authority and the legal leadership of licensed operators. That was an important achievement. However, compliance, while predictability, transparency, and confidence, a sector in which investors can commit capital with clarity, a sector in which operators can make long-term business decisions with confidence, a sector in which regulatory expectations are clearly understood and consistently applied. And ultimately, a sector capable of supporting Nigeria's broader economic aspirations. As we are aware, the Petroleum Industry Act 2021 fundamentally altered the legal and regulatory landscape of our industry. The Act created new institutions. It also established new market frameworks. It introduced new compliance obligations. It created new opportunities for investment, and it placed new responsibilities on regulators, operators, and legal practitioners alike. 5 years into the implementation of the PIA, we have reached an important stage in our journey. The focus is no longer on solely on what the law and how investors are assessing opportunities, as well as how institutions are working together to achieve the objectives that the legislation envisioned. These questions sit at the heart of this forum. Over the next 2 days, we will explore them from multiple perspectives across 6 different sessions that promise to be engaging. Our opening panel will examine the relationship between regulatory certainty and investment confidence, and consider what it truly means to move beyond compliance in today's petroleum industry. The high-level governmental panel will also bring together key public sector stakeholders to discuss institutional coordination, enabling policies, and the broader investment environment. The investment panel will focus on the practical, legal, and commercial pathways through which investment enters into the petroleum value chain. Our discussions on energy security, midstream development, and host community implementation will address some of the consequential issues facing the sector today. Taken together, these 6 sessions form a single conversation, a conversation about how we build a petroleum industry that is not only compliant but competitive, not only regulated but trusted, not only operational but investable, and perhaps most importantly, not only successful today, but sustainable for generations to come. The authority approaches these discussions with humility and openness. We recognize that regulation is most effective when it is informed by engagement. We recognize that implementation challenges do exist. We recognize that areas of ambiguity occasionally arise within even the most carefully designed frameworks, and we recognize that the legal professionals gathered here today opportunity for candid dialogue between the authority and the legal leadership of licensed operators. I encourage all participants to engage actively, challenge assumptions, share experiences, identify emerging risks, highlight areas requiring clarification, and in the end, offer practical solutions. I have only just assumed the leadership of the authority, but I do so with a firm belief that trust, transparency, and engagement must remain central pillars of our regulatory philosophy. Please be assured that the authority will continue to engage openly with stakeholders, act transparently, regulate fairly and consistently, and remain responsive to the realities of an evolving industry. We will continue to strengthen regulatory clarity, encourage responsible investment, and foster the collaborative relationships that are essential to achieving the objectives of the PIA. We cannot achieve those objectives in isolation. We will achieve them through partnerships, through dialogue, and collective commitment of all stakeholders represented in this room. On behalf of the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, I welcome you once again to this forum. I thank you for your continued partnership and support, and I wish you fruitful deliberations over the course of the next 2 days. Thank you, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Please, can we give another warm, resounding round of applause for the authority, Chief Executive, the ACE, NMDPRA. As I was following along, there are certain things that stood out to me concerning this event. One is that it's not a talk shop, it's a feedback mechanism, meaning we want to hear from you, your challenges, your concerns, any areas of ambiguity. It goes beyond what the law says to how the law is being implemented. And we also want to see the different stakeholders to also put across their points in a very constructive manner. The ACE said that we're looking at a sector that is transparent, one that is competitive, one that is trustworthy and sustainable. We go beyond compliance, and we're committed, engage with the presentations, the conversations that we'll have on stage and off stage, whether it's the cocktail that's more relaxed, day 1, day 2, or even beyond. The doors of the NMDPRA remain open for constant deliberation, guidance, and Mallam, Rabiu, Abdullahi, Umar. We want to show him that we're very happy to have him at the helm of leadership, as this is his first time joining us here at the General Counsel and Legal Advisors Forum. Thank you very much, sir. We'll now move to our keynote address, which will speak to today's theme, driving regulatory certainty and investment confidence in Nigeria's petroleum sector. Once again, it's an honor and a privilege to welcome a man who has dedicated his life to private and public service, working in various capacities, showing his legal acumen, his love for servant-based leadership, taking up various roles in government, But today he joins us once again at the General Counsel and Legal Advisors Forum 2.0 as the Honourable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources Oil. Please, I don't know about you, but I know that he deserves a standing ovation and a resounding round of applause. His Excellency, Senator Heineken Lokpobiri, PhD. Once again, a warm round of applause, please.
Thank you. The Authority Chief Executive of NMDPRA and the Executive Directors of NMDPRA, General Counsels, Legal Advisors, Captains of Industry, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's a very rare privilege to speak to you today at the 2026 edition of the General Counsel and Legal Advisors Forum. As a lawyer, I have special interest in this forum. Unfortunately, I wasn't invited. I'm very happy that I had no reason to miss it, but I almost missed it. I know that I had accepted to be here today a long time ago. But until the ACE called me at about 11 p.m. yesterday to remind me about this event, I had almost forgotten. Because there are too many competing, engagements I didn't remember. And that was why I'm specifically thanking the ACE for calling me at that 11 p.m., yesterday to remind me. If it didn't remind me last night, perhaps I would have sent a representative, but I wouldn't be here, today, in this forum. As a very strategic platform for engagement between General Counsel and legal advisors of licensed operators. Recall that in today's dynamic, capital-intensive, industry that we operate in, this kind of dialogue is very strategic, it's absolutely imperative, and it's absolutely desirable, for this type of dialogue to be taking place annually. Therefore, the theme of this year's forum, Beyond Compliance, Driving Regulatory Certainty and Investment Confidence in Nigeria's petroleum sector, is very significant, but also very timely. And please permit me, to dwell on these two words, beyond compliance. These two words, I believe, are well crafted. They are not accidental. They represent a deliberate complying. This question is very important. This question will always remain important, but it is no longer sufficient. Merely complying with extant regulations, laws, may not be sufficient. The more consequential question today is whether our regulatory agencies are doing their jobs. Our regulations, legal framework, clear, consistent, predictable, enough to earn the confidence investors need to commit their capital. Not just for the short term, but for the long term. In my opinion, compliance is just the foundation that we need to build on. Regulatory certainty is one of the most critical ingredients of attracting investors, to any, country. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, You agree with me that the global energy landscape is undergoing major transformation. You are aware of the geopolitical tensions, supply chain disruption, market volatility, and evolving global energy policies that continue to reshape the investment decisions across the world. Investors today are more discerning than ever before. Capital is increasingly flowing to jurisdictions where policies are clear, institutions are effective, contracts are respected, and regulatory processes are. You agree with me, before 2023, we had a 10-year period where there was no investment in Nigeria. Today, we take about 70% of the investments that flow into the African continent. So we are competing well. That's not where I want us to be. But we must appreciate the little gains that we have made since 2023, so that that can be a further inspiration for us to do a little more and attract as much more capital as we can attract. The PIA 2021 fundamentally changed the governance architecture of the petroleum industry. It established a transparent and commercially oriented framework designed to improve regulatory effectiveness, attract investment, and unlock the full potentials of the petroleum industry. But I will say to you today, without any fear of contradiction, the PIA, though, has given us the architecture, we must build. We as lawyers should also do a lot more. We're not just giving advice to our clients. That will give us short-term gains alone. But advice that will change the industry for the longer term. As a government, over the last 3 years, we didn't wait for perfect conditions, but we chose to implement reforms that we believe that will change, the industry. We developed guidelines in consultation with the industry, in line with extant provisions of the PIA, so as to give enduring, legal force to the real intendment of the PIA. You also agree with me that the sector is fully deregulated. This was a decision that not even military presidents had the courage to take. Of the President Mallam in 2023 took the very bold decision with the sole intention of changing the industry forever. It's also important for me, to tell you that since 2023, because of the changes in the industry, there has been no artificial fuel scarcity in the country. It was a perennial problem every year during Christmas, during festive periods. We used to have a huge, fuel scarcity, but because of that singular decision to deregulate completely, there has been no fuel scarcity. Even at this critical period where the entire world was affected by the conflict between Iran, Israel, and the USA, Nigeria had availability of products throughout this period. Pricing is also another issue, and I think that is one issue that I want this forum to deal with today. As part of the requirements of the regulation, prices have to be determined by market forces. But NMDPRA has a unique responsibility conferred on it by the PIA to ensure that not just products are available, but you must ensure that unnecessary profiteering is stopped. Yes, the sector is regulated, but that doesn't mean there's no limited regulation. I listen to, to discussions on television every day. They're calling me out. Mr. Lokpobiri should come and speak out. But I've deliberately decided not to, to engage in any press war with anybody. Because what is important is the reality of the situation in the industry. Primarily, market forces will have to determine prices. But we also have a responsibility as government all over the world to ensure that we avoid unnecessary profit sharing, which the PIA specifically vested in government institutions, including the NMDPRA, to stop. It's also important that Nigerians get the full benefit of what they buy. I've seen situations where somebody buys 50 liters, where they get is 30 liters. NMDPRA. There are offices across the country has a responsibility to ensure that our men and women are on the field to ensure that if somebody buys 50 liters, he gets 50 liters. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's my very candid opinion that, compliance, therefore, is not sufficient, although fundamental. Lawyers advising licensed operators also have a critical responsibility, not just to their clients, but also to the society. This is where you lawyers, who are gathered in this room, at this particular time, have a critical role to play. You are not just simply, interpreters of the law, just because you want to sustain, your retainership with your clients. But you have a greater responsibility to the society and to our country. It's also important for me to state that this forum is so important. I wish it could be made biannually. I think that it will have, better opportunity for us to assess every 6 months what has happened, and if there are corrections to be made, it could be made with a view to improving the situation. I believe that this forum, is carefully created with a view to ensuring that there's consensus built at all times. Where a regulation is ambiguous, you are the ones that your clients will call. When guidelines create questions, more questions than answers, you are the ones that will be called upon. When compliance obligations technically met but commercially absurd, you are the one who will have to resolve the contradictions. But it's always better to resolve it in this room than to resolve it in a courtroom or in the court of public opinion. This is not, in my opinion, not a burden, but the strategic influence that you have in the society. The General Counsel is not just does regulations meet the requisite objective. Does it enable responsible investment or frustrate them? Does it create certainty or absurdity? These are very important legal questions that I believe you should always reflect in this forum. These are governance questions, and I believe you are uniquely positioned to answer them. I therefore say this clearly: do not become stumbling blocks. Do not allow, the instinct towards caution, which is entirely legitimate in legal practice, but always know that the law that is always, in existence to govern any situation is made by human beings, and sometimes you have to look at the broader objective of every law. No law is intended to get negative reaction or negative results. Every law is intended to improve or solve a particular problem. And I'm saying so not just as a lawyer, but somebody who spent, a greater part of my public career as a lawmaker. First as Speaker of Bayelsa State House of Assembly 27 years ago, and then as a Senator, of the Federal Republic, which I left about 11 years ago. Some people say I'm a former lawmaker. Yes, I agree. But my little period, 8 years in the Senate, gave me opportunity to know the reasons why laws are made. That is why you see amendments, proposed for certain laws from time to time, just to address specific problems. Every time, every election cycle, you see people amending the Electoral Act. It's because after every election, things are discovered, and there's always need, perhaps, to amend the law to be able to cure, certain problems. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you agree with me that Nigeria's petroleum sector is entering a new phase. Domestic refining is expanding. Private sector, participation is deepening, which is the real intent of the regulation. New opportunities are emerging in the sector, but opportunities alone do not attract investment, but confidence of investors is what attracts investment. Consistency of government policies, which we have sought to maintain since this government came. And I want to use the opportunity to say that we'll continue to maintain, that consistency. It's also important for me to state that building confidence is a collective responsibility, not just that of government, but across all stakeholders of the industry. Regulators must maintain high standards of governance and compliance, and legal advisors must continue to serve as trusted partners, strengthening the integrity and credibility of the sector. One well-crafted regulation, one clear guideline, and one honest piece of advice is what is needed to grow this sector. Ladies and gentlemen, I will close, where this forum's own ambition may begin, with a conviction that participants in this room should leave here better equipped to interpret regulatory expectations, better equipped to guide internal compliance strategy, and better equipped to engage constructively with the NMDPRA going forward. Go beyond compliance. Ask harder questions in this forum. Demand clearer answers. And when the rules are not clear enough, say so. Because that feedback is how we can improve what we're doing. The insights generated here will remain within these walls, will not remain within these walls. They will inform better policy, better regulation, and better industry practice for the benefit of not just Nigeria, not just West Africa, but, the entire world. I want to conclude by thanking you for this very, very, very rare opportunity of speaking to you, and to say that by this time next year I will not be here. I believe that by that time we would have been out of office, and I won't be here. Even if I'm invited, I will come here as a former minister. But I want to specifically thank you for this opportunity given to me to be able to speak to you today. Thank you, and please, I wish you very fruitful deliberations.
Please, can we give His Excellency Senator Heineken Lokpobiri, PhD, another resounding round of applause of the people. And there's so many gems in that presentation. But some of the ones that stood out for me was that this is a collaborative responsibility, is a collective responsibility, and it's better to settle things here than in the courtroom or the court of public opinion. Please, can I invite once again to the stage for a presentation. We have a token of appreciation for His Excellency, Senator Heineken Lokpobiri, PhD. Please, can we give him a round of applause as he comes to the stage? And I would also like to invite the ACE, NMDPRA, who will be accompanied by the executive directors present here from the NMDPRA. We'll also like to invite the authority secretary and the legal advisor. Could we also have Dr. Charles Nwachukwu and the representative of the forum organizers? Please, can we have you on stage? Please, can we have the EDs present? Can we have the authority secretary, legal advisor, Dr. Charles Nwachukwu, and a representative from our organizers, Mr. Fortune Toma, for a presentation to His Excellency, the Honourable Minister for State for Petroleum Resources, Oil. Thank you again, Honourable Minister, for reminding us that indeed the law is made to solve problems, not to create a negative reaction. And that is why through engagement we can see amendments happening to ensure that the object obeying the law, but we're going a step further as general counsels, as members of the legal leadership teams across, and we trust, Honourable Minister, you'll join us at the 3rd edition, 4th and 5th edition, and perhaps this could be a biannual thing. Thank you once again. We've had our keynote remark, our opening address, and the presentation, but Q&A interaction, an opportunity to get feedback where there are areas of ambiguity so we can all implement on the same page. Again, our theme today goes beyond compliance, which last year we established compliance as a collective responsibility of both the operator and the regulator. Today, we go beyond that. Before we proceed, and I acknowledge some of the distinguished personalities in our midst, we now have time for our safety brief. Please put your hands together as I invite the representative from Abuja Continental Hotel to take us in the safety briefing. A warm round of applause, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to Abuja Continental Hotel. My name is Saleh Mohammed. I'm the hotel safety manager. For your safety and security, we deem it necessary to tell you the protocols as regards the use of this hall, so that from beginning till the end of the program, we will not record any incident. However, before I go further, if there's a need for you to use the convenience, it is very easy to locate. If you just go out through this main entrance door, turn to the left, you see an office. Behind the office is where the convenience is located. When you get there, there are two doors. The door to the left-hand side is for the female convenience, while the door to the right-hand side is for the male convenience. Aside that, we have no schedule today for a fire drill. Therefore, should there be a steady ringing of fire alarm bell that lasts from 5 to 10 seconds or beyond that, that suggests that something is wrong somewhere or is a false alarm. However, whatsoever the reason may be, please do not panic, be calm, because we have emergency response team members on ground to do the needful should something go contrary to our expectation. Then, if evacuation becomes necessary, we have two assembly points. One, if you go out through this main entrance door, just walk straight to the main entrance of the Ladi Kwali Hall. There are 3 exit doors there. Just gently go out through any of the exit doors. As soon as you go out, turn to the left, you'll see the muster point where you are expected to assemble based on your group, as others also have their event within the Ladi Kwali Hall. If assembling will not be possible there for whatsoever reason, we have alternative assembly point, and you can get there by going behind this banner from whichever way, either from that side or this side. There are 2 exit doors. As soon as you go out, turn to the left, you start seeing directional signages that will take you to the alternative assembly point. Then, on the security aspect, this is a public place, though it's a controlled environment. It is therefore important that your personal valuable belongings, more especially a mobile phone, should not be left unattended. Should you have a cause to leave where you are seated, maybe going to the convenience, tea break, lunch, or whatsoever the reason may be, so that you will not have a cause to complain of either loss, damage, or misplacement of any item. Just like other organizations, Abuja Continental Hotel will not be liable for that. So please be guided. So without wasting your time, on behalf of the management, I wish you a successful program. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for the representative of Abuja Continental Hotel. And just to reiterate some of the points, please do not leave any of your personal items unattended to. Your mobile phones, your handbags, your laptops, your devices, please do not leave them unattended to at any point in time. Thank you once again. We are right back to our presentation, but before I go forward, I'd like to especially recognize some people who have joined us today. And please, if I haven't called your name, I will be doing this throughout the event. We're joined by the representative of one of our executive directors, that is Dr. Mustafa Lamodi, Executive Director, Health, Safety, Environment, and Community, NMDPRA, ably represented by Ms. Anne Omezi. And we're also joined Dr. Emeka Akabogu, SAN, Senior Partner, Akabogu and Associates. Also joining us today is, we're joined by several, I see some people are still coming in, so we'll give about some time for everyone to settle down. I'm very mindful of the time. And please, can we just ensure that we keep our eyes on the timer to ensure that we don't go beyond the allotted time so that the event does not drag. I'll continue with the acknowledgements, but at this point, I'd like us to move to our first presentation, which will look at the theme, Beyond Compliance, Driving Regulatory Certainty and Investment Confidence in Nigeria's Petroleum Sector. The Honourable Minister was so kind in his keynote address to touch on this very succinctly, but in a very robust manner. And this presentation will be done by the Authority Secretary Advisor, NMDPRA, have 10 minutes for the opening presentation, Beyond Compliance, Driving Regulatory Certainty and Investment Confidence in Nigeria's Petroleum Sector. Can we have a resounding round of applause for the Authority Secretary and Legal Advisor, NMDPRA, Dr. Joseph Tolorunse. Please, a warm round of applause for him, please. I know the applause can keep coming. I see Dr. Joseph Tolorunse. Keep the applause coming as he makes his way to the stage, and he will start off with the opening presentation for the next 10 minutes, and this will set the tone for the first panel, which will also look at the theme. Keep the applause going till he gets to the stage. Please, can we have the correct slide? All right. As we await the correct presentation to be displayed, just a reminder that as we are taking pictures and recording videos and putting it out there. Yes, please, sir. Please.
The Honourable Minister has left and the Authority Chief Executive, but I will just start with the already established protocol. Ladies and gentlemen, my colleagues, my learned friends, you are to this year's edition of Legal Advisors Forum. I just want to correct one notion. This is the third edition. We started in year 2023. Last year we had it, though it was aborted midway, but this is the third one. So I'm here to make a presentation on there. Please, next slide. This is the outline of my presentation. Introduction, then uncertainty from overlapping requirements and implementation practices. Then we try to look at the meaning of regulatory certainty. What is the investors is expecting from regulatory certainty? We look at the General Counsel as an investment enabler, moving beyond compliance management. Well, what we must do differently, moving beyond compliance to regulatory partnership, then beyond compliance towards confidence. Then I will briefly examine the roles of regulators and the operators, and then conclude. Next slide. Just a comparison. Last year, 2025, what we were saying, and in this year, 2026, what are we talking about? The last year's theme borders on advancing a collaborative compliance culture in Nigeria mainstream and downstream petroleum sectors. We talked about collaboration between the regulator and the regulated. We said compliance should be a shared value, a culture, a partnership, and collaborative to reduce disputes. Last year, we also looked at how legal advisors participate, how they need to participate early in business decisions, so that in the oil and gas sector, we know is very highly technical, but despite that fact, the legal advisor has a role to play. They need to participate from the project conception. We also talk about using ADR as a means of resolving our relationship. Then the result we had from last year, we now have regulation, we look at it and we consolidated it and also digitize our processes. So the result of our discussion last year was really rewarding. This year, we're talking about, the question is not how do we improve the industry compliance culture. That was what we talked last year. But today, we are now looking at how do we transform regulatory certainty into a competitive advantage in the industry, compliance culture. Because if we attract investment, definitely there will be growth. Investment will create growth, it will strengthen our energy security. So the investment question we should be asking ourselves now is that how predictable is our regulation? How consistent are the regulatory decisions? How quickly are approvals obtained? Are the disputes, are they resolved? And how are they resolved quickly? You know, and how has the regulator been responsive to the regulated? All their questions, all their concerns, how have we done? So accordingly, the role of General Counsel continues to evolve. You know, as from last year, we have seen the evolution, what we are now talking about this year. Next slide, please. So uncertainty, you know, we are trying to look at what is uncertainty. You know, usually we're getting this uncertainty mostly from overlapping requirements and implementation practices. You know, the way the regulator, all the regulators, the overlapping functions, then the overlapping requirements along the value chain of our licenses. Then in the implementation practices, how do we implement it in order not to create uncertainty? So first, we look at the PIAs, like our ground norm, is the legal foundation. Implementation of PIA is now driving regulatory maturity. As we are implementing PIA, we are now seeing what are the regulatory requirements we need to come out of it. You know, so we discovered that we need to refine our regulatory landscape through stakeholder engagement. We have done a lot of stakeholder engagement in NMDPRA in order to refine our regulatory regulations. And then the result of that refining is the consolidation we had. We have to consolidate about 10 regulations into one. And we come up with a downstream petroleum operational regulation 2025, which we did last year. It's a major step towards simplifying compliance and reducing regulatory fragmentation. Like I said, over 10 regulations were combined into one. Not that we change it much, but we refine it, we consolidate it for ease of reference. Also, we have discovered that out of implementation of the PIA, there is recent policy initiatives of the federal government. You know, the president gave directives to the industry, which we are implementing. In fact, to the two regulators, which we are implementing now. It signaled government's commitment to improving Nigeria investment competitiveness. You know, areas of overlapping jurisdictions have been addressed, and it's as a result of presidential directives. Next slide, please. Yeah, meaning of regulatory certainty. I try to look at what it actually means. What are the pillars of regulatory certainty? When we talk about regulatory certainty, we are talking about stable legal and policy framework. Because stability of fiscal rules throughout project lifespan will avoid policy reversal. You know, if our legal framework is stable, then incidents of reversing policy will not occur. So one of the pillars is also it makes long-term investment decisions with confidence. You know, the investors expect that they will be able to make long-term investment decisions with confidence. You know, they will not be afraid into investing. When the regulation is certain, the rules are clear, it is predictable, then investing will not be difficult for them. They can approach investment with confidence. Then we have strong institutional capacity. The regulator is expected, the investor is expected that the regulator should also have skilled personnel. You know, they are expected that the regulator should also imbibe strong modern technology, you know, so that they will have reliable data and they will be able to engage, to train their staff for professional development. So one of the pillars of certainty, regulatory certainty, also there must be mechanism to resolve the dispute amicably, efficiently, and in a way that is not adversarial. So ADR is one of the options, arbitration, perhaps even specialized commercial courts. Recently, we know that for areas relating to energy and oil and gas, we have federal high court that adjudicate on such matters, but they can still do more. We can have special commercial courts that deals with those things. It also requires consistent interpretation of regulatory requirements and decisions so that there should not be arbitrary interpretation of the laws. Then engagement must be transparent and predictable approval processes. So the investor also must understand regulatory obligations clearly. So all these principles, or will I say pillars of regulatory certainty, once they are in place, we can say our law, we have regulatory certainty. And that is what the investor expects in the industry. Next slide, please. General Counsel as an investment enabler, we are now moving beyond compliance to management. We're moving beyond compliance management. What we must we do differently now? We must play a central role in enabling investment decisions, like I've said, helping our organizations to invest with confidence. We must help our organization to manage regulatory risk, identify early and structure transactions appropriately. And we must support commercial innovation, must strengthen corporate governance in our respective organizations, and we must facilitate constructive engagement with regulators. If you facilitate constructive engagement with regulators, this is an area that we can avoid disputes, that we can avoid also controversies. So don't feel free to approach the regulators, approach us, have constructive engagement with us, and we'll be able to sort out a lot of things. Next slide. What we must do differently, moving beyond compliance to regulatory partnership. We're also talking about partnership now. We must build compliance design. And in building our compliance design, we must integrate legal regulatory consideration, early stages of project planning. In our early stages of project planning, we must build a compliance design as part of our project. We don't have to wait till when there's a problem or there's a legal problem. So once we build that compliance design in our project at an initial stage, that will help. We must also engage proactively with the regulator. How can we do this? Consultation or dialogue to resolve issues before they become disputes. Then treat regulatory certainty. How do we treat regulatory certainty? As a strategic business asset. Make it a strategic business asset. Okay, thank you. Make regulatory certainty a strategic business asset. Not merely as a legal obligation. Don't see it as a legal obligation, but treat it as your asset. Next slide. I think my time is up. Next slide. Well, we're still talking about approaching investment with confidence. How do we do that? There must be clear laws. There must be consistent in our implementation. Then institution must be very responsive. Then share responsibility between regulator and industry. Then we have continuous stakeholders engagement, efficient dispute resolution mechanism. Go to the next slide. So These are the roles of the regulators. In our spare time, you can just have it. Go to the next slide. Next slide. These are the roles of the operators. In this, our shared culture, shared vision. These are the roles we are expected to perform. Operations will demonstrate this. Corporate governance, timely regulated compliance, environmental stewardship, ethical business conduct, community development, accurate reporting. Your reporting to regulator, we expect it to be top-notch, to be accurate. Then the operational integrity. So, a journey. What we are saying, regulatory certainty is a journey. You know, it's certainly, regulatory certainty is not a destination, but it is a journey. If you look at the journey, in 2021, Petroleum Industrial was made. Between 2022 and 2024, we tried to transit, develop our regulatory frameworks. In 2025, we imbibe collaborative compliance. We have General Counsel Legal Advisors Forum, where we talk about collaboration. And from that collaborative experience, we have our law consolidated. In 2026, we're talking about how our transportation tariff and presidential reform directives will continue to refine our law. So in conclusion, permit me to conclude by returning to the theme of this forum, beyond compliance, driving regulatory certainty and investment confidence in Nigeria petroleum structures. These words capture an important truth. Compliance will always remain the foundation of an effective regulatory system and consistently. And confidence that together we can build a petroleum sector that is resilient, competitive, and globally attractive. Last year, we spoke about collaborative compliance, but this year we are speaking about regulatory certainty. Perhaps next year, we will speak about something even more important, how regulatory certainty has translated into measurable growth, increased investment, stronger infrastructure, and greater energy security for our nation. With this, I think, okay, conclusion. This is my last conclusion. I'm sorry. He said, investing in Nigeria's petroleum future will be defined not only by the abundance of its hydrocarbons, but by the credibility, predictability, and integrity of the regulatory institution. So, thank you for listening to me. I'm ready to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll start by inviting the moderator for our first panel, which looks at the theme of this year's edition, Beyond Compliance, Driving Regulatory Certainty and Investment Confidence in Nigeria's Petroleum Sector. Please put your hands together for Dr. Ayodele Oni, partner, Bloomfield LP. The applause is a bit weak. I know the tea break comes up right after this, but please can we just make it a whole lot warmer. Well done, sir. Good morning. And then joining us on this panel, we have Dr. Joseph Tolorunse, author, and Mr. Moderator. I hope we comply to the time given. It will be put up on the screen to ensure that it doesn't drag. So next on the panel is Ijoma Idika, Head Legal and Regulatory Compliance, Falcon Corporation. A warm round of applause for her. Also joining this panel is the General Counsel at Tetra Core Energy, OKZ Oka Ave. A warm round of applause, please. And our final panelist is none other than the General Counsel, Sahara Energy Group, Tolulope Fadipe. Please put your hands together. So we'll be starting this panel. Please, we can't accommodate more time, so any questions and answers should be factored into the time given. If it's 10 minutes towards the end or 15 minutes, it will be appreciated so we can get questions. And please do remember that right after Ayodele Oni.
Interesting gentleman and a lady, and we'll be having a quick conversation. I'll put one or two people on the spot, not make progress nonetheless, right? So we will do that. No, everyone here, I'm familiar with everyone here. I think I have questions around compliance, around certainty. You know, because certainty is critical in investment decision making. That's why we hear FID. FID does take time. You need to check. You want attention. I'll start asking him questions. He'll be my first, the first person I'll be asking a question. From the authorities past ministered in a predictable and consistent manner, 1. 2, in a situation where the authority does make a mistake in granting a permit, maybe to...
I talked about regulatory certainty. What are the pillars? You know, that our legal framework, we must be able to interpret it correctly, to make it predictable, so that the investor can come and we don't have to go out all the time, even check it. So predictability. Investor must be able to say, oh, if I invest, this is how the law will be applied. It's formally. And we are even moving towards making our inspection, our monitoring to be for supervision in that area. You know? So if you find out that an operator consists question, if you remind me, your second question, please.
My second question. When you find out that you've made a mistake, not clerical.
You are even talking, I don't see it even arising, because presently we have digitized our permitting processes. You know, most of our you can print it online yourself. So the situation of giving another permit, a permit to a person who didn't, will give it the deserve attention, and it will be corrected. So to me, it's not an issue. Once it is not
I might come back to that because you didn't completely answer my question. You give to A instead of B, they both apply for the same thing. You now realize that should have been given. I would ask Okezi a quick question. From the perspective of an operator involved in gas and energy infrastructure, what are the key regulatory issues that most affect bankability?
Now is ensuring that you have the proper payment mechanisms in place, like payment security, because it's not just wanting to have having bankable projects. And of course, in your contracts, certain terms should be locked in, your payment mechanism should be locked in, proper payment securities put into that contract. And I'll also raise a real-life scenario that I'm aware of, which has to do with some of the equity, getting some investors on board. But they made some kind of stumbling block in the shape of that regulation. The first question the investors were asking is, why? And then we were going back and forth because he was obviously seeking my opinion on eating and enabling the environment, not just trying to have mentioned there's a penalty attached to it, I think about $100,000 if you do not get the necessary consent. On top of that, there's also a quite high. So you have these scenarios where they could easily cause regulatory issues, especially when it's commendable. But on top of what he said, I probably would just add briefly that not just encouraging, at the same time we need them to do a lot much more. And then finally, I'll probably add that to operators out there listening to me, add that it's good if we have you blocked in the regulations. Do you have a good relationship with the regulators? Are you able to guarantee us that you'll be able to get the necessary license permits within the shortest possible time? So those are a couple of issues I can.
What are those day-to-day regulatory compliance issues you have? Where do you think the industry still needs clearer guidance from the regulator, especially in relation to licensing, approvals, reporting obligations, and regulatory interface?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. With the enactment of the regulations, we now have a semblance, of what guidance and regulation for the industry and the space and the sector should look like. But just to say that we have not arrived where the goal point is. Take, for instance, an application for regulatory permits and approvals. Dr. Tolorunse mentioned that it should form part of your project design. Understood and accepted. We include it, but it's one item that is not ticked off in terms of timing. You have every other thing properly dimensioned. The other side goes silent. For some reason, even when you're engaging, you have contact and continuous contact and engagement with the regulator. There is no end sight that not all applications and approvals are on that platform. There are still some that the templates for application are not yet clear, needs and what are the things that are left out. And even when you make a manual application, nobody comes back to say, this is a criteria or this is a checklist we expect you to comply with. So these are two
decision or walk away in Nigeria's midstream and downstream sector, despite the PIA. We do have reforms introduced by the PIA, but are there those big ticket issues that still maybe attract people?
Or a typical investor will be concerned about is, so we don't overflog this issue, but it's staring us in the face. Regulatory certainty, regulatory predictability, the resources we have as a country. So what would be the attraction to me as a country? I spend billions of dollars building infrastructure. The PIA has successfully drawn a line between regulatory overlaps. NMDPRA. It's when an issue comes up that remember that okay, there must be something here. Let's look into this. We're all just focused on the PIA. So we need to go beyond, and there is a 360 or even 180 degrees turnaround, because a single wink the competition in the industry as much as possible, just to ensure that, because if I want to put in my money in a country, I'll look at okay, how are the previous investors being treated? So we need to, we can't overflow these issues. Those are the core, and I'm glad it featured prominently in the
regulations and implementation, generally speaking. For example, I'm sure many of us are aware of the import duty exemption regime when you do your LPG, LNG, CNG. So even where the law is clear, delays, changing interpretations, or administrative bottlenecks can affect project timelines and financing. What concrete steps are you taking?
I believe this is I'm quite happy about the turnout of events now. This is a forum where we can actually, areas we know we are not, we need improvement, surely we're going to address that. But let me just comment on a few things about timing of granting approval. Yeah, I'm not here to defend the authority, but most times we have, in our regulations and law, we provide timing for when you put in your application, this is the time you expect it to come out. But when you who submitted the application is not submitting correct, complete applications, that time will be affected. I'm not here to defend authority. Of course, there may be lapses of the authority as well, but I've also. So if you enforce that provision, now we know it's our fault. We will not question that. We are still on the digitization processes. I agree, not all of them processes are publicized there. If you go through that guideline, it will definitely help you. Then transfer of shares is we look at transfer of shares. It's not all transfer of shares that you require our somehow. It is then we require consent. Like that. We discovered that and we try to work out situation, because when we try to implement, so we now try to say, okay, what formula can we use so that we don't pay 1%, so we cascaded it down to 2.5%. That's what we have done. And the Honourable Minister approved it. So we addressed that concern.
Improve. Okezi, your company is doing a number of projects. And as an investor committing capital to long-term infrastructure such as your gas processing, transportation, distribution, etc.
Stability, regulatory stability, legal stability basically. Understanding that the goalpost set by the regulators in January is the same one I'm going to meet. You have your regulators who say that some prices are regulated for some sectors. And if you remember, we spoke earlier about the power sector, about how that at any point in time, we can change the price. It doesn't give me the confidence I need. And to a very, very large extent, the PIA has been able to achieve this. It has carried out the commission and authorities that we have now. But what is also important to me is ensuring that our regulators in a position to provide that to me as an investor. An investor, once there's that certainty, then you're a bit comfortable. The assurance as you act, then you can then have a bit of assurance. And then finally, I would say the infrastructure gap we have in the country. Can we have regulations that can support development of more infrastructure? I know it's really for the private sector, to develop your own assets, but then can the regulators, can they play a role in encouraging that discussion between private investors and private players in the sector? Thank you.
Thank you. Very valid point. I've always been of the view that it's government's role to provide backbone infrastructure, and the private sector can improve on it. So if the private sector is going to do it, then there has to be substantial level of certainty, clarity, monetize that your investment subsequently. Thank you. Now we'll look inwards. Ijeoma, how can legal and regulatory compliance teams within licensed operators move beyond a reactive compliance role and become more strategic partners in building trust with regulators and improving investor confidence?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ayo. So this is very critical because you can't even move forward if you don't have a good relationship with your regulator. So first of all, I would advise you make regulatory compliance a strategic add-on to your business. It's not an afterthought. At a time when you are still at conception stages of your project, everything about regulatory compliance, all the obligations that you're supposed to meet should form part of that project decision before you proceed. And then secondly, proactive. It should be easy for us to walk into NMDPRA to say, these are my concerns. Who can I meet? If there is a desk assigned for particular projects of particular sectors guidance. And then thirdly, within your organization, make your organization a community of regulatory compliance experts or people. Let every department support each other. Legal shouldn't just be while we support in the terms of meeting and engagement and in terms of interpretation of what the expectations are. And then maybe fourthly, also try and have internal audits within your system, within your organization, where you are now tracking and monitoring these obligations for closure ahead of time. It's important. Once you have sedimented what the expectations of your organizations are as far as regulatory compliance is concerned, then you can now track them. You could employ technology to even track. It will give you heads up, prompts, ahead of time before the timelines reach to avoid breaches and to avoid defaults. So basically, in a nutshell, regulatory compliance is not an afterthought. It's part of what we do. Any business that is shut down because of regulatory breach, every other thing you're talking about, cannot go on. You can't function essentially. So it's a core part of every business, and it should be taken that seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Technology and artificial intelligence should now be integrated into what we do, generally speaking. Tolu, final question. Looking ahead, the next 5 years, what should be the top regulatory priorities if Nigeria wants to position itself as the preferred destination for petroleum and energy infrastructure investment in Africa? In your own perspective.
Thanks once again, Dr. Ayoni. All right, so a key priority for me would be transparency and for an application or for a license or a permit. I put in all the documenting money into such an economy. We have a lot going for us as a country. We have abundant hydrocarbon, all these things in abundance. What we now need is to drill down and ensure that wherever we see is a checklist you have to meet as an investor. Once you tick that checklist, we need to minimize diversification of the issue of the participation in the market. To a large extent, we need to ensure that we have an industry where different players have different roles they play, and all these roles add up to complement each other to give us the desired results as a country. I think I'll leave it there for
a growth issue. Thank you all for joining this session. I don't know if you can take questions, but
yes, we can take 2 questions.
Okay.
Do your organization, your question. Please keep it very brief, not a comment, but a question. And let us know which of the panelists or the moderator who you're posing that question to. So microphoning. All right, can we have the...
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mariam Adebayo. I'm a lawyer. I work quiet time. There is a deem approval provision that can be activated. But my question is, how do you operationalize this deem approval in terms of next step? And let me give you an example. So, for example, I'm trying to transfer my interest in a life. If you say I can activate the deem approval provisions, how do I proceed? Do I proceed to act as if I am the holder of that license, notwithstanding the fact that NMDPRA has not reported? The evidence, the license or the certificate that you give to me is the evidence or a prima facie evidence that I am the owner of that license or I am entitled to act on the basis of that certificate. In an instance whereby I'm activating a deem approval provision, do you expect me to carry on the activities, notwithstanding the fact that I don't have a certificate from NMDPRA certifying that I am the holder of that facility or I'm entitled to operate that facility as the case may be? Thank you.
With your application, you know it's not your fault that you have a deem approval. Yes. That's what the law says. You can enforce the law. Yeah, we have a situation where we will be taking it to court on that issue. And it happened in Lagos then. The person was relying on the deem approval provisions. And mind you, for consent, we don't issue another license. It's just a letter we give to you. To law, and it's your choice to enforce it. I don't have to enforce it for you. If you don't receive approval from me, I say, and the law says you have a deem approval. What you have is deem approval, and you can bank on it to me. So how you operationalize it is left for the applicant. If you chose not to enforce that provisions, and you are still waiting for a letter or license from authority, that is your choice. But the law says you have a deem approval, and we recognize that. Even in our dealing, we always have it at the back of our mind that, oh, you have 60 days to process an assignment of interest. 60 days. And if you don't process it, the person can go to bank, can take it to there and say, this is the law. So you enforce the law. Thank you very much.
Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you. Okay, if we can keep the questions very briefly, we'll take the 2 questions. Your name, what you do, the question, and who is addressed to. We'll take the 2 questions, and then we close the Q&A.
Thank you. Franklin Ofua from Communities Development Trust. You know, you have regulations, you have guidelines. Hello? It says to the Corporate Affairs Commission, that is the second arm of the approval. That's the way I want to see that question, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Chinedu Idike, Seplat Energy PLC. My question is this. We're all committed about regulatory certainty. We're here to talk about regulatory predictability, consistency, certainty. If that is the role of all of us, including the regulator, why should we find ourselves in a situation where the deemed approval provision is an occurrence? Because it's all about regulatory certainty. If the law on deemed approval is new in Nigeria, it was not originally part of our laws. And the Nigerian government, in its wisdom, inserted in the PIA to ensure that business is run and investors get their approvals timeously. So if someone is sitting on an application and 60 days will come and go, and there's no approval, no communication, no rejection, I think it does not, augur well for the industry, and is actually an area that we should address in terms of regulatory certainty. Thank you.
Thank you. We won't be taking any more questions. And please, just a reminder that it's actually questions and not suggestions or feedback. We want to keep it Q&A. There will be a time later today where we can have interactive, that's not just limited to this panel, where you can also share your observations and feedback. Over to you, Dr. Tolorunshe.
The question? Still on deemed approval? Yes. You see, we work by law, right? The law did not say I should give you deemed approval. Yeah? The law says you have a deemed approval. So what I'm saying in essence is that it's left for the party to enforce that provision and say, I have a deemed approval. And if authorities are not satisfied, it may not even be at the fault of the authority, from the fault of the applicant. And from my experience, when we are carrying out due diligence on assignment, application for assignment of interest, most time the applicant will not submit complete document. So that's why that provision has not really been effectively managed. But I'm saying where the applicant has done all what is expected it to do, and yet approval is not given, it has a deemed approval.
For conversation, please can you rise for a group picture, and then I'll be invited on behalf of the NMDPRA. So please can we rise, and paparazzi, please help to coordinate. Please can we put our hands together for Dr. Charles Nwachukwu and Mr. Fortune, and then we'll reconvene in another 20 minutes. We'll be back here. Presentation, looking at unlocking investor confidence, rethinking institutional interfaces, and enabling policies in Nigeria's petroleum sector. And then we'll have the Secretary for organizing the General Counsel and Legal Advisors Forum. This is the 3rd edition, and it came people for the tea break. This is a great time to stretch, to get some fresh air, to meet somebody new, to share feedback, take pictures, post online, #NMD. Please do not leave any of your items unattended to, your bags, your laptops, your phones. Please keep them on your person at all times, even as you exit the hall. Please, if we've had refreshments or we've already picked them up, we can come back into the hall and eat them, and we really need to start. So ushers, please can you direct people back into the hall? Can we all begin to take our seats? Our panelists and moderator are here already, and we need to begin in earnest as we still have 2 panel sessions and of course the interactive Q&A wrap up. So if we can just have all our delegates back into the hall. It's okay if you come in with your snacks, your drinks, your refreshments. That's perfectly fine, but we really need to start in earnest. Ushers, please direct people back to their seats. Thank you all for returning to your seats. We'll give another 5-10 minutes so we can all pack our refreshments, bring them in. If we need to urgently respond to an email and you're already in the hall, please feel free to do so. But I encourage you to network, to find someone new, exchange LinkedIn requests, and also, if you really still want to have more refreshments, we're more than happy for you to grab seconds. Please, we'll be reconvening in another 5 to 10 minutes. So we really count on you to return to the hall, as our moderator and panelists for the second session are already here, and we really don't want to keep them waiting, considering that we have 2 more sessions and then the interactive Q&A to wrap up before we break for lunch, and then we're back here this evening for the cocktail. Please, if you're still outside, we'd like to start in the next 2 minutes. The hall is already getting full, and we can't continue to keep our speakers, our panelists, and moderator waiting. We really have to reconvene and begin the second session. As I mentioned earlier, we still have 2 more sessions. Right after that, we have an interactive Q&A, and then we close for lunch. But we're back this evening for the cocktail, and of course tomorrow morning for day 2. So please, 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 if you're still outside, you're free to bring in your refreshments, you're free to bring in your drinks, you're free to bring in your conversations that are keeping you outside. Please, let's all take our seats. And just a reminder that whenever we're walking around or we're leaving our seats, not to leave any of our personal items unattended to. So our second session this afternoon will look at unlocking investor confidence, rethinking institutional interfaces, and enabling policies in Nigeria's petroleum sector. We'll start off with a presentation before we move to the panel session, which will include Q&A. Right after that, we're going to have a presentation on the third panel, which is the final panel for today, and that will look at exploring legal and commercial entry points for investment in Nigeria's midstream and downstream petroleum value chain, from policy to project. Tomorrow, our first session will look at energy security, understanding the issues. We also have, is what I just announced, and then the final session for tomorrow will be from mandate to impact, implementing PIA's host community development framework, where we go beyond the buzzword that has become compliance to actually unlocking the full potential of Nigeria's petroleum sector. And that can only happen when there's 1 minute and then we have to start. So ushers, please, can you usher people back into the room? Please, it's really important. Can we have all our panelists and VIP? We truly apologize for the late start in reconvening, but we'll do everything in our power to ensure that we don't finish too late, because we want you to return this evening at 6 p.m. for the evening cocktail. I still see some people coming into the hall. Please, can we all get to our seats very quickly? We are starting in a minute. That's 60 seconds. Please, we can't continue to extend this. Our time is greatly spent. It's already 20 minutes past the hour of 1:20 p.m. And we still have 2 panel sessions and the interactive Q&A wrap up. So very important that we are all seated. Rethinking institutional interfaces and enabling policies in Nigeria's petroleum sector. It gives me great pleasure to welcome our speaker for the second session. Please put your hands together for the Special Assistant to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on petroleum. A warm round of applause. I know we've had our tea break, so I know the applause will swell. Please make welcome Ola Adeniji as she makes her way to the microphone for her presentation.
Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Permit me to stand on existing protocol. Let me first begin by thanking the organizers for inviting me to speak on a topic that sits at the heart of Nigeria's energy future: unlocking investor confidence, rethinking investor confidence, institutional interfaces, and enabling policies in the midstream and downstream petroleum sector. I would first like to acknowledge my principal, Mrs. Olu Verheyen, the Special Advisor to the President on Energy. Working under her has taught me what policy reform actually takes. It is not simply developing elegant policy documents, but the harder and less visible work. It is about rallying stakeholders around a shared objective and doing the hard work required to make the policy work in practice. These lessons have been especially important for me as a young lawyer. As lawyers, we are trained to ask whether the instrument is valid, whether the draft orientation. It has taught me that a policy can be legally sound and still fail to move a single investment decision forward or solve a real problem. So I have learned to ask a further question. Will the policy work in practice? In this sector, that means asking whether the policy gives investors enough confidence to commit capital, build infrastructure, and execute projects over a 15 to 25-year investment cycle. Confidence of that kind is built through the unglamorous work of sitting across the table with investors, regulators, and other implementing agencies to understand the real constraints and design solutions that can be applied in practice. When this administration took office, that is where the work began. We engaged companies and government institutions across the value chain and asked what was preventing investment and limiting growth. And the issues were clear. Fiscal terms, unclear those issues directly. These included measures to improve regulatory stability, introduce fiscal incentives for oil and gas production, support midstream gas projects, and stimulate the clean cooking and clean mobility subsectors. In the last 2 years, these measures have helped unlock over $8 billion in upstream investments and more than $2 billion in investment % of Africa's upstream capital in just 2 years. But none of these measures were designed in isolation. They were informed by extensive industry engagement, benchmarking against regional and global competitors, and most importantly, co-creation with the institutions that would ultimately be responsible for implementing them, including the NMDPRA, NUPRC, NCDMB, NMPC, NRS, and Ministry of Petroleum Resources and the Ministry of Finance. Because a tax incentive is only useful if the tax authority applies it consistently, and it comes waiver is only real if customs understands how to apply it at the port. So issuing a policy is the first half of the reform. Implementation is second, and that is where coordination decides everything. If one agency supports an investment and another delays it, the investment remains at risk. Investors do not experience government in silos. They do not separate regulatory risk from tax risk or customs risk in a way our mandates sometimes do. To them, it is all Nigeria risk. So collaboration cannot be an afterthought. It must be part of the architecture of reform. This is particularly important in the midstream and downstreams. A few lessons stand out. First, policy must be designed with institutions that will apply it. Second, institutions must work around national objectives and not only their institutional mandates. Third, industry engagement and feedback is critical to the design of policy and must continue even after the policy is issued. For us as lawyers, this is where our role becomes very important. Public sector lawyers must draft with implementation in mind. We must see that appears clear in government becomes difficult to rely on in a real transaction. This feedback matters because ambiguity and inconsistent interpretation. The cost is delay and stalled investments, and that cost is ultimately paid by the country through delayed infrastructure, lost jobs, lower revenue, and slower growth. Investors do not chase sentiment. They chase stability, clarity, and returns. If Nigeria wants to unlock the full potential of and downstream sector, we must compete on clarity of rules, coordination between institutions, and the ability of government to speak with one voice. If we get this right, Nigeria and downstream sector will attract the investment needed to build the infrastructure for domestic energy security, industrial growth, and long-term national prosperity. Thank you.
Can we give her another warm round of applause? It's so nice when everyone just keeps the time. So thank you for not using up the entirety of the 10 minutes. But please, can we reset the timer now for our panel session? Again, we'll use the first 30 minutes for the conversation, and then we'll move to Q&A, which will last for 10 minutes. So if you do have questions, please keep them very brief and to the point. Questions, not suggestions or feedback. We can do that during the interactive Q&A when we wrap up the third session today. And then right after that, we'll have pictures and a quick presentation of gifts from the organizers. So for our second session, which is looking at unlocking investor confidence, rethinking institutional interfaces, and enabling policies in Nigeria's petroleum sector, I'd now like to invite the moderator, lead partner at May and Ivory. Can we put our hands together for Adebayo Ologe? I thought after the tea break, the applause will be a whole lot stronger. Yes, thank you very much. Next, we have Mallam Bashir Sadiq, Executive Director, Corporate Services and Administration at the NMDPRA. A warm round of applause, please. Also joining him for this panel session is none other than the Commission Secretary and Legal Advisor, NUPRC, Olayemi Adeboyejo. A warm round of applause, please. We also have the General Counsel, Nigeria Revenue Service, Dr. Simeon Obidairo. Please put your hands together. Joining us also for this panel is the Director, Legal Services, Ministry of Petroleum Resources, Telemon. And finally, we have the Special Assistant to the President on Petroleum. You heard her speak when she gave her opening presentation. Another beautiful round of applause for Ola Adeni. All right, while we sort out the issue, we'll ensure that... Okay, please, could we have another seat? But nonetheless, I'm going to start counting so the clock can start running down as I hand over to our more than able moderator, Adebayo Ologe. Over to you. Please, can we have volume on the mics on stage? Thank you. Can you try that again?
All right. Thank you, MC. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, so the topic for this panel has been set at unlocking investor confidence, rethinking institutional interfaces, and enabling policies in Nigeria's petroleum sector. Now, the Special Assistant to the President on Petroleum, thank you once again for that beautiful presentation. Now, I will start with you. Now, in the course of your presentation, you mentioned the number of executive orders and policy interventions by the federal government aimed at improving Nigeria's competitiveness in the petroleum sector. Now, the audience would like to know, from the presidency's perspective, what problems were these reforms intended to solve, and what does government now see as the next frontier in strengthening investor confidence?
Investment and production that those resources should translate into. So for example, for gas, we saw that Nigeria had 76% of gas reserves that were, and we first of all asked why the investors were not investing. And they mentioned a few issues, for example, poor and unattractive fiscal terms, cost premiums, contracting and approval delays, and each executive order that the president issued was targeted towards addressing each and every one of those concerns. And in terms of the next frontier, Next step is really watching over implementation to make sure that the policies are actually working as intended, working as they should. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Madam Essie. All right, I will move to the legal advisor of the sister agency very quickly. Now, from the presentations made so far, there has been this emphasis on implementation of policies. Now, from the perspective of the upstream regulator, what does regulatory certainty look like in practice?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Let me also really pleased to be here with my colleagues and my friends. You know, for me, I think ultimately, investor confidence is a question of institutional trust. It's just about trust. Because capital will flow to jurisdictions where people believe that the institutions would apply the law in a lawful, consistent. No. I think certainty about regulation, I think good regulation is simply about reducing uncertainty. And as regulators, I think it's key for us to realize that every decision we make, there's no stagnancy. It either increases certainty or it reduces it. When we start from that background, we start to understand what we mean by certainty in regulation. I like that the special advisor to assistant to the president spoke about, she spoke about policy. So policy is great, and I'm glad she mentioned that it was 50% of the job. In fact, I think it's the beginning. I think policy just starts it. So when you have a good policy, you've just started. Policy simply tells investors this is where government wants to go. It is the implementation, is how the institutions implement it, that persuades investors that, you know what, government would actually do what he has said he would do. And it's that persuasion that is key. So for me, when you talk about certainty of regulation, I keep telling people that investors are not, they want things to be cheap. But they do understand that, regulators have a responsibility to enforce the law. We have a responsibility to protect the interest of government and also to generate revenue for government. So they're not really looking for the most favorable outcome. But they do want a regulator that would apply those rules consistently. So investors are looking for, they want to know who is this regulator? What are his beliefs? How does he apply the law? Is it consistent? What rules are required? What processes would he follow? And most importantly, they want to know that every similar case will be determined the same way. So they don't like surprises. So I think for me, it's all about consistency. And when you are consistent, you are transparent, you are predictable over time, you then build trust. Because ultimately, when you are talking about petroleum, we're talking long-term investments, we're talking several billions of dollars, we're talking a long framework of 20, 30 years. And I think that money can only go where? It's not just about geology, it's not about the terrain, it's not about the...
Now, from the first session we had this morning, there was this conversation around, okay, license holders, they are aware of the provisions of the PIA, they are aware of the regulations, and they are aware of the guidelines. But oftentimes when they approach the regulator, any particular project, now, as a regulator in the upstream, what would you advise? Is it something that you advise they should make a practice?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. As a private practitioner myself, I used to encourage that. And I would then add that let's write for you, let's do it on a no-names basis. Because we're always very careful about whether would the regulator then, would they target our clients, would they victimize our clients? That was always an issue. But I think, like I said, it's predictability. That's what determines it. And we plan to build a wide database over a few months. And then we know that we can't cover particulars and then say, okay, this is the scenario, this is how the regulator will handle it. We plan to address that. How we plan to address that at the Commission is to have a database of decisions, legal opinions, at least from the legal perspective. We will create a database of legal opinions in which people can go and say, you know what, in this scenario, this was the decision, this was the legal reasoning. And we know that if they have that at their fingertips, Then it's not every time they come to meet the legal department. Of course, we expect them to come when our issue is critical, but we think they need to know what is the thinking, how are we thinking. And we believe that if we develop those databases, one is internal, one is external. If we develop those two databases over time, we can create more predictability in the system. And that they would then release the issue that the gentleman spoke about when he was speaking at the earlier forum.
About the need for regulators not to work in silos. Now, my question to you is, how do we preserve these statutory mandates while also ensuring that investors experience government as one coordinated system rather than a collection of separate regulators?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ologe. First of all, I think everyone here will see quite clearly that I am not Mallam Bashir Sadiq. My ED was, unfortunately, he was called away. Well, fortunately, he was called away on a critical national assignment, and he had to leave in extremely large gap that his absence has created. So yes, so the PIA has created several institutions. In fact, my colleagues and I were speaking about it a few days ago when we were saying how many institutions has the PIA created? It's not just the NMDPRA, NUPRC, and even NMPC as it were. There's a minister, there's MOPI, it's totally new. And the interpretation of the PIA within the core regulatory and even commercial body, NMPC, NMDPRA, NUPRC, yes. Because this is a new way of doing things. People are learning. Interpretations differ. The one thing a lawyer can tell you is that there'll be multiple interpretations to one particular issue. But the critical thing for us is more around that we're not in competition with one another, we're in collaboration. The PIA has mandated a value chain, upstream, midstream, downstream. Within that value chain, you also have different specialized sectors. Certain companies play in one or two of those sectors, and the PIA has also dealt with those issues if we drill down and look deeply into it. For us, it's not about competition, it's about collaboration, in NMDPRA in particular, and the value that it brings to Nigerians. So, yes, we do need more and better coordination with our sister agency, the NUPRC. I always maintain that a lot of the issues we have, and I speak freely, it comes from there's still that clear segmentation within that overlap. It's quite clear. So for us as lawyers, I always say that we have a shared responsibility to cut out the noise. We must look at you, there's nothing for us to regulate. And that is why you are the most important people in the room, I always say. Which is why whenever we are thinking about this forum, we look for industry participation. I know how I badger people to participate. Some people say they don't want to, some people say they can't and everything. I can lie down begging and pleading, please, just come and participate. Say your mind. The world will not end if we talk. So for us, we keep pushing coordination between all the agencies, from the ministry, the minister, who is the first person in the PIA, down to MOPI, the last in the PIA. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Onwachu. Okay, before I move to question on the fiscal regime, let me go to the representative of the ministry. That's the legal advisor of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. That's the parent ministry. Now, we know that the ministry occupies a very unique position within the sector. Now, the audience would like to know, how does the ministry encourage coordination across institutions while ensuring that policy objectives are translated into coherent regulatory outcome?
Okay. Thank you very much. So the answer to this question has been given already, but basically, for the ministry, what it seeks to do is ensure that people investors, the customers, don't experience individual agencies. So the core aim of the ministry is to align all of the agencies, all of the players, the stakeholders, even those who are not directly within the, say, technical operators within the industry, including host communities. So basically, the ministry seeks to align all players. Now, like has been mentioned, it is possible that there might be one or two places where there are overlaps. Again, the ministry's role is to ensure that there is coordination in how even regulation is done, such that you have two major regulators, but you ensure that their regulations complement rather than work at variance, essentially. And also, the ministry strives that gap. Essentially, that's a policy intervention from the point of the ministry. So, bottom line for the ministry, it is not about how many regulations are issued, but it is more about how
effective of the Nigeria Revenue Service. How do you balance effective revenue administration with the need to maintain a stable and predictable investment climate?
Thank you for the question. I mean, I think from the revenue services perspective, fiscal certainty is one of the core principles that we also espouse. We need to deal with two creative tensions, right? The first one is, how do we provide sufficient incentives for investors while also making sure that the nation receives its fair share, right? And the way we approach this is from a position of enlightened self-interest, which is that if we have better investments in the sector, right, we get to collect more revenues and make available more resources for the state. So that's the first thing. The second tension that we need to play around revolves around the trade-off between maximizing short-term revenue, or do we trade this for long-term investments? So those are the things that we deal with. I mean, again, going back to the theme that seems to be running through this conference, certainty is how we raise revenue. So it's just as important for the revenue service that there's certainty. We can plan around what revenues we're going to receive and how we collect those revenues. As you all know, we recently passed 4 tax laws. And in doing that, certainty was embedded into the process. So the first thing we did was we took 20 different pieces of legislation, right, and brought them down into 3. We have 480 amendments to the tax code. So what we did was take 20 pieces of legislation, right, reduce it to 3. I think in that transaction, and that's binding on the service. So, I mean, I think in terms of trying to create certainty in the industry, I think those are the major things that we've done specifically that relate to the oil industry.
Thank you very much. Okay. Before I go to the members of the audience, to my panelists, I'll give you 1 minute each. Now, what should we look at as our next priority if Nigeria is to become Africa's preferred petroleum investment destination? The essay, the president.
So I think the next priority is domesticating more of our resources, both oil and gas, for energy security, economic growth, and economic diversification. So what does that mean? It means more gas available for the power sector, more gas available to industrialize, more gas available for cooking and for transportation. So the next focus is not only exporting our vast resources, but also making sure that they're used to actually ensure wealth and prosperity in the country.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Bidaro.
I think one thing I hear among operators is that you ask one question and you get 3 different answers, right? I think there's a confusion that this is around the mandates. I don't think the problem is around the mandates, right? I think the problem revolves around the data architecture, right, and how decisions are made. So I think if there's one thing that we should focus on is that we need to work off the same data set, right? So that as an operator, you get certainty in the responses that you get from the regulators.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Wataru.
I think simply, from our perspective, it's more about a priority should be accelerating project delivery. So it's more about execution, faster approvals, predictable timelines. I think the key thing for us is that we should